Welcome to another video. It's Cynthia, and in today's video we're going to talk about the different games that I used in my homeschool. We're going to talk about how much homeschooling actually cost, and then lastly we're going to talk about what supplies do you actually need to start homeschooling. The basics, as well as a couple of other things in there that I'm going to throw in that are really good and helpful to have in your homeschool if you haven't considered having them yet. So let's get started. The very first things you want to consider in your budget for homeschooling is the curriculum. There's so many different types of curriculum out there that it can be overwhelming, and it's easy to choose one that you hear the most people talking about. Charlotte Mason possibly, or The Good and the Beautiful, master's books. There's a lot of different types, and some of them can be pretty pricey, unfortunately. But I'm here to tell you there are some really good, affordable homeschool curriculums out there, and you can create your own if you wanted to, which is what I did when I decided to take the approach with homeschooling my children. I didn't do it the first year around, but I did do it this year that's coming up, and I think that I'm really excited at how it turned out with the planning and the organizing, and I'm going to be sharing more of that with you in future videos. Anyway, you want to make sure that you stay within your budget because it can get really pricey really fast, and before you know it, everything looks so good and brand new and shiny, and it's just a brand new adventure that you're going to be embarking upon, and it can be really exciting to go into this path, this new journey, and you just want to try everything, and you're like, oh, my kid has to try this, and we want to try this, and we want to do just like the school, which I don't recommend you do. Trying to get just like the school is not a good idea because it's just not. You're not going to be able to implement the school, and it's going to be a headache for you, and you're going to have this high level of expectation that you feel as though you should achieve, and you're not going to be able to achieve it, unfortunately. And that's what I tried, and it sucked and it failed. And not just because I failed at it doesn't mean that you're going to fail at it, but I've heard this from multiple homeschool moms that they tried to implement school just the way it was, and it just failed. It just isn't going to work that way. So try to do homeschool with a different approach, which is just you doing one-on-one with your kid, maybe sitting on the sofa, sitting at the kitchen table, in your PJs still, or not in your PJs, getting dressed, whatever works for you, whatever you got to do. So the second thing that you want to take into account are field trips. It's good to take your kids onto field trips when you are budgeting for the school year, and they don't have to be expensive field trips, and you can also get discounts on the field trips at your local library sometimes, depending on your library and what discounts they might have. They might have some for the zoo and other museums, children's museums and things like that. So look into that before you buy any tickets ahead of time, because you could be saving yourself some pennies in that area. Another thing that I mentioned in another video are co-ops. Not everyone goes into a co-op. It is not necessary to join a co-op. However, there are a couple of benefits to joining a co-op if you'd like to. I'm on a wait list currently in my area to join a co-op. What I plan on doing is budgeting for the co-op. It's not a lot for this co-op at all, but I still want to add it into my budget just to make sure that everything is accounted for, and that I am taking into account how many things I'm actually spending money on for this homeschool year, comparing it to last year, comparing it to what I'm going to be doing next year, because I do plan on doing this for a extended period of time. The Homeschool Convention is another thing that you might want to take into account. I don't plan on going to it. Maybe in the future, maybe that will change. I'm not really sure. Not really sure where it's at exactly either. I feel like it's on the West Coast. I am on the East Coast, and I'm just thinking, making it a big trip of flying over there, finding a hotel, getting a rental car, and all that other stuff. And I'm like, it's not really in my budget for this year, and if it's not in your budget either, that's not a big deal. There are other things that you can do to connect with moms. There's Facebook groups that you can join. There are a lot of different ways that you can connect. You can join a co-op, which is another option if you don't want to do the homeschool convention, so that you can find other parents to meet with that you can vent to, someone safe to vent to. We talked about that in a previous video as well, venting to someone that is of good nature and that will take into your concerns into consideration, and they won't make you feel like you shouldn't be homeschooling at all, because some people are really good at doing that. Lastly, you want to budget for school supplies, and this, I noticed one thing, that notebooks now are $1 at Target anyway. They're $1, and I want to say 2018 they were 10 cents. So you want to budget for how many notebooks you're going to use throughout the school year, as well as notebooks that you can use for yourself. And there are other things that you can get secondhand. I got a lot of things at Goodwill. There is a good section there for like home supplies, home office supplies, school supplies, things like that. You can buy crayons that are gently used or hardly used at all or not used at all, and it's a great thing to have into your school to add to your school supplies. And if your kid doesn't use those, there's definitely pencils you can get at Goodwill which are not sharpened yet. They're unsharpened pencils. I've gotten packs and packs of pencils there. I've gotten lined paper. I've gotten notebooks there. I've gotten binders. The thing that I've made videos with planning and organizing, everything that I got for planning and organizing, everything pretty much in that video I got from Goodwill except for probably the workbooks. That's probably the only thing I didn't get from Goodwill. I actually bought those on Amazon, and I can leave a link in the description box if you're interested in the workbooks that I purchased. So the amount that you're ultimately going to spend on homeschooling really depends on how many kids you have, the type of curriculum that you choose, if you're choosing to create the curriculum yourself like I did, or if you want to do something more, maybe you're going to do online learning for your kids instead and do education.com or all-in-one homeschool, which is easy peasy as well. And there's another one that is slipping my mind right now, but there's school online that you can do with your kids if you want to do more of a hands-off approach, or if you want to be more involved in your kids and slowly teach them independence throughout the school year. That's an approach that you can take as well. So those are the different things that you can budget for when it comes to homeschooling and how much it will actually cost. What educational games do I use? So there's a few different games I use. I use a counting game, I use a spelling game, I use Seek and Find, I use Counting Dinosaurs. I have a few different things that you guys are gonna crack up. If you can see, my bearded dragon right now is staring at me trying to figure out who I'm talking to. And he looks so confused. It's so funny. Anyway, if you have little ones, it's a really good idea to have educational games inside of your homeschool. My son is finishing up preschool and he's going to be starting kindergarten, and I'm going to be homeschooling him for that time. So I want to make sure that since they're so little, I don't want to get too heavy in the workbooks. Well, for him anyway. My daughter, she's going to have lots of different workbooks to use. But for him, I want to make sure I had a nice variety of different games so he can learn how to do spelling and counting and reading in a more fun, hands-on approach instead of just throwing him in front of a worksheet and just telling him to fill it out basically, and trying to teach him independence. I'm going to teach him independence, but it's going to look completely different from the way that it is with my daughter, who is going into 2nd grade. And I'm going to do videos in the future when the school year starts. I'm starting that in September. When the school year does start, I'm going to do videos showing the difference between how I teach my son versus how I teach my daughter, and how when I'm doing the lesson plans, I have a together section, an independent section, and a hands-on section, and then I have a little introduction that I do before I even start all of that. And I'm going to just show you how it looks to teach 2 different children at 2 different ages, and how I have approached that method anyway. I'm sure there's many different ways of approaching it, but I just want to show you what I do because it might help you, and it's good for us helping each other out. That's what I'm all about. If you are interested in any of the things that I mentioned, please check the description box for further information, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!